What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well. Welcome back to another edition of Late Night News. Yes, we are back chatting all things Manchester United ahead of tomorrow. It still is tomorrow's Premier League clash at Old Trafford. Of course, it's Manchester United versus Chelsea. And as we always do the evening before a match, we talk about any news stories that are happening right before we play in the Premier League or the Champions League or anything like that. This time, we're talking about the embargoed part of the press conference. You know me, as I always say, when it comes to the presser, when it comes to the press conference, there's always sort of the juicy parts. There's always the really interesting, meaty parts that happen in the second part, in the embargoed part of the press conference. And tonight was, I would say, no different. Erik ten Hag, I felt, in the second part was bullish. Was bullish, defended himself, defended his record, defended his relationship with his players, defended the job that he was doing, and in fact went as far to call some of the articles that have been written about him in the last 24 hours as a joke, is what he said. He referred to single-sourced articles as a joke and kind of denied that there was negativity surrounding Manchester United and denied that the players were no longer with him and things of that nature as well. So there's plenty to get into. If you haven't already, smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right-hand corner. You know what to do. As always with late night news, of course, it's late over here in the UK, but it might not be where you are. So let me know where you're watching. I know that this show is much more of an international show. We get messages, or certainly I do, of people in, let's say, the United States going, finally, I can actually watch a show live, or people in Australia going, oh, it's a good time for me actually as well. So let me know where you're watching from, as always. And whilst you're in the comments, whilst you're there, click a like button. Be sure to subscribe. Hey, maybe whilst you're there too, join the membership if you want to. The latest episode of UV Raw came out today. It features a rematch on FIFA, not EAFC, the old one, FIFA, between myself and Just Josh Media, graphics guru, visual ninja. Spoiler, I won because, you know, let's just say Josh isn't a gamer. You know, he's not much of a gamer. He's a graphics guru, he's a visual ninja, but he's not much of a gamer. One thing is, though,
disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful.
That's Kenny's words, not mine. What are people saying in the chat? They are saying, Scoot's watching from Manchester. Bulo's watching from Luton. Hey, I just watched the Arsenal game, and I got a bad feeling about Arsenal this season, to be honest with you. Like, that's not the first time they've done that. If you haven't watched it or you haven't seen the result, 4-3, it's a Luton away, and I know people go Luton away, but it does feel like, doesn't it? It does. You know when teams start scoring late goals often, but they're playing well too? It's very concerning, isn't it? Gavin says, yes, Owen breaking out the late night streams. Nino's watching from Ghana. Big up to you. Austin says, big ups everyone and Owen. I'm in the States, but I'm always watching live. Big up to you, Austin. And also, with a couple of KG emojis there as well. And that's what Austin gets for being a member. You've got normal KG and then you've got green KG. Now, there's been a bit of a rumour when it comes to KG, that comedian, that maybe, just maybe, we might see a rogue KG tomorrow morning. You'll have to tune in to find out. 9 a.m. Morning View. Propo Palmeiras is watching in Leicester. What else we got? Biraf's watching from Canada as well. 9:30 in South Australia. So there you go. Plenty of people watching from around the world. But let's get into this embargoed part of the press conference. Some really interesting comments from Erik ten Hag here. We start off with a question saying about the cycle. About the cycle that Manchester United managers find themselves in. And I've said this quite a bit recently on social media and on here, that Manchester United collectively as a club needs to break the cycle. And that cycle is get a manager in, it goes well for about 12 to 18 months, and then we start hearing of the negativity, we start hearing of the players getting frustrated, we start hearing about players not liking training, or players not liking the manager's attitude, whether it's because he's too nice, or he's too soft, or he's too robotic, or he doesn't speak the language very well, or whatever it may be. There's always an excuse, there's always a reason. So Ten Hag was asked, we've seen a similar cycle with certainly the last sort of three managers, a good start, and then this situation comes along. How important is it that the club sticks with you through this tough time? And Erik ten Hag said, there will always be tough times in every journey. We are in the right direction, and I know we will get where we want to be because you can see my record. Now, if I'm mistaken, let me know. But is this the first time that Erik ten Hag's kind of spoken about, like, look at my record speaks for itself? I can't really remember him doing that in the past. So I thought that was quite bullish of him to do, because we haven't really seen him do that, unless I'm mistaken. Maybe he has, but he's not usually the type of manager who goes, look what I've done, look what I've achieved, see my record, we're going in the right direction, I know we'll get there. Why? Because I've done it before. He then continued by saying, everywhere I have been in every season, I have got my targets. If we stick together and we stick to the plan and the strategy, we will get where we want to be. So Ten Hag, as the thumbnail says, Ten Hag fights back. Ten Hag backs himself. Ten Hag backs his abilities. Ten Hag backs his achievements in the past as well. And also, he spoke about what he achieved last season at United, as if to say, I'll get it right. And he believes that not only will he get it right, but that's the reason why he knows he'll get it right, is because he's done it before. And I thought that was very bullish from the Manchester United manager, certainly. Now, the next question was about the culture at the club. This terrible, let's face it, player power culture at the club. And this was an interesting moment, I think. So the question was, when you came in, you spoke about getting rid of a not good culture at Manchester United. But when fans see, and I think it was Neil Custis that actually said this player specifically, when fans see Anthony Martial and other players not trying, do you have to put them out of the team for a youth player, in that if you're not going to try, you should be taken out, and you've done this for too long, you're on big contracts, all this kind of stuff? And Ten Hag cut him off and said, but Anthony Martial played brilliant against Everton, and I don't think it's fair to point to one player. And Custis said, it's more than one player. And Ten Hag said, everyone at one moment can't make a pattern. And he spoke about this a lot. He used the word pattern a lot in this second part of the press conference. He said, one moment can't make it a pattern. Week before, we played brilliant. Lots of energy and spirit. Fulham, Burnley, Brentford, and games like Luton. So many games, if it was a pattern, it would be different. This was not a pattern. Absolutely not. Now, I spoke earlier on today in the first part of the press conference, and I said that I thought the decision to ban the journalist was a good one. About time. Stand up for yourself. Push back on some of the nonsense that's written and some of the strategic timing of certain articles and dressing room sources and all that kind of stuff. I felt that was a good thing. I see some people some people are very revisionist history. Some people play off, this would never happen under Sir Alex Ferguson's time. I went, are you taking the piss? This wouldn't happen under Sir Alex Ferguson's time. Sir Alex Ferguson didn't speak to the BBC for 7 years. 7 years. And they had to get someone from the BBC to eventually go and meet him, apologise, and new rules had to be put in place. That Sir Alex Ferguson had to talk to the BBC. And he banned journalists all the time. Once, I think he banned Andy Mitten and someone else. Why? Because they said Rio Ferdinand was injured for an upcoming game, which he was, by the way, but they still banned him. So let's not pretend that this is unprecedented stuff from Erik ten Hag and Manchester United. We've never seen the like happen before. Of course we have. Of course we have. And if he believes that they're writing lies about it, stand up for yourself. Isn't that what we want to see from the manager who's too robotic in his too tight suits? Is it not? Now, I mentioned that was a good thing in the press conference earlier on, but I actually felt that some of his words and some of the phrases and some of the answers that he gave wasn't the strongest press conference, and this is kind of falling into that category. Now, what I do applaud him with is the bit at the start with Anthony Martial. I've heavily criticised Martial. Don't think he should be at the club. I think at the end of the season, he won't be at the club. His contract's expiring. He's on 250k a week. The guy hasn't completed 90 minutes in 3 years. That's a problem. I mean, it was a problem last season when he was the striker that we relied on and he's completely unreliable. I think it's really actually quite sad that he's in, his mid-20s? How old is he? 27, 28, something like that? And he can't complete 90 minutes of football. That's really bad. And frankly, the only reason he's been available all this season is because he hasn't been playing. Because when he plays, he gets injured. And again, someone on that kind of wage, it just, the moment's passed for Anthony Martial. So I'm not going to sit here and be like, Martial deserves a chance. He deserves a chance. He's the future, because he's not. But I think it's very evident what the journalist was trying to do there. He claimed after that, well, I wasn't singling out just Martial, it was more than one player, but why did you bring up his name then? Because you can bring up a lot of people's names at Manchester United that aren't trying and aren't putting a shift in at the moment. We can bring up Marcus Rashford, we can bring up a ton of midfielders. We can bring up defenders. We can bring up... There's been an argument to be made about a lot of people, right? There'd be an argument to be made about a lot of people at Manchester United that aren't trying very hard and aren't covering themselves in glory. So when it came to that, it's like, you know... I've seen that kind of criticism in the media about Anthony Martial. And they're going, oh, Martial, he's not trying hard enough, or he's not doing this, he's not doing that. I just look at that going, he shouldn't even be here. Take a step back, look at the bigger picture. Granted, should he be selected for Manchester United? Probably not. But at the same time, again, bigger picture, wider issue. Why is he still at the club? Why is he still here in the first place? Why is he on 250k a week? And that means we can't get rid of him. Isn't that the bigger problem? As I've said numerous times over the last few days, everything circles back to recruitment at Manchester United, doesn't it? Incomings, outgoings. That's what it always comes down to. We've got a lot of players, Martial's included in this, but it's not limited to Anthony Martial, of people that are on massive contracts. Realistically, should have been gone a couple of years ago, but United can't get rid of them. Why can't we get rid of them? Because they're on too much money. And no club with any sense in the world would buy them because they go, what are we going to do? Inherit that contract. And the players, justifiably so, they're going, I'm not leaving. Why would I leave? I sit here at Man United, one of the biggest clubs in the world, a lot of eyeballs on me, and I get a lot of money. And sometimes I don't even play. So I'm not going anywhere unless you're going to pay me off, which you'd have to do. Again, it's the Maguire situation in the summer. So it always comes back. It always comes back to recruitment. Always comes back to that. I mean, Jose Mourinho with Martial wanted to get rid of him back in, 2018? And it was the ownership, it was Joel Glazer that vetoed it. We said it before, the article's out there about he reminds him of Pele. I wonder what Kenny thinks of that.
Disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful.
I tend to agree, Kenny. So, as far as I've been a big critic of Martial and the fact that, again, his record, his record last season was startling in terms of, minutes per goal involvement, because he barely had any minutes on the pitch, yet he still managed to get goals and get assists as well. It was remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. Absolutely...
disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful.
But it was remarkable. And... you still can't rely on him, and we need to move on. But I thought, I see what the journalist is trying to do there. You see what they're trying to do. Now, when asked about, but it's more than one player, as I mentioned, Ten Hag spoke about patterns, saying no, it's about patterns. And he was insistent that the game against Newcastle was not evident of a pattern of behaviour. Because in more recent weeks, we've seen more positive performances than negative ones, so it's not a pattern. And I kind of push back on that a little bit, because I say, well, just because it hasn't happened in a cluster recently doesn't make it a pattern, means that it's not a pattern, rather. So you can have patterns of behavior that take place, at different points in time. But if you look at it in totality, it can absolutely be a pattern of behavior. For instance, the cycle that we're on, and it feels like we're in at this point of time with Erik ten Hag, we've seen this before. This is why, in my opinion, we don't get rid of the manager. This is why we stick with the player. We stick with the manager and get rid of the players, rather. It's because we've seen this pattern of behavior. Now, we might not see it for 18 months. They might do it for one manager, like with Ollie and Ralph Rangnick, where they go, don't like him, get rid of him. Don't like him. No, I'm not going to run. Gegenpress, are you taking the piss? I'm not running. 40 minutes into Palace, I'm not doing that at all anymore. No, thank you. Training, we're leaving in the dark. No, I'm not doing that. No, thank you. No chance. This guy, this coach, this is American guy, doesn't know what he's talking about. The guy with the AirPods in. No, I'm not doing that. And then for 18 months, if you're on your best behavior, but then you do it again, that's still a pattern of behavior because you've done it in the past. There's precedent set. And then also, when you dig into it a bit more, you go, wait a minute, this happened under Rangnick and sort of Ollie, and wait a minute, it happened under Jose. Oh, and it happened under Louis van Gaal as well. Oh, that is a pattern of behaviour. Like, that's a pattern of behaviour over and over and over again. So, just because in recent weeks, we have, played better against certain teams, that performance against Newcastle wasn't an outlier, was it? That didn't feel like an outlier. That didn't feel like I've never seen that before. We have. That's the problem. And that's why the players are the problem. When push comes to shove, as Roy Keane said, leopards don't change their spots. They might give you the impression that they have changed. Or they might give you the impression that they've no longer, their spots have changed, but they remain every single time. Every single time. We'll get to some of the more questions in just a second. Big up to JP8TM. JP87TM, excuse me, missed the number, who was gifted one United View membership. Big up to you. And who got gifted that membership? MUFC 14 was gifted a membership. So thank you very much. And you now have access to all of the perks of the UV membership. You can get your badges, your emojis, your exclusive members-only content, such as UV Raw. And you can call in tomorrow for the full-time view. Have your say after the match. Hopefully, you and I will be talking about a victory, if you call in, of course. We'll be talking about a win and not a loss, which it feels like we have been talking about recently too much as well. What people are saying in the chat at the moment as well. The Nutty Oppressor says, is this pre-recorded? Yes. I tell you what, if it is, it's bloody impressive that I would have got that comment up as well. That would be very, very, very impressive. But you never know. Sometimes we can do crazy things. David T says the owners like him, gave him a Ballon d'Or clause. Don't think we're going to hit it, the Martial one. I don't think we're going to have to pay that kind of money. Austin Baker says Pele is crazy. It's a wild story. But then again, I suppose, look, when it comes to all of this kind of stuff, reporting, who knows what to believe anymore, right? Who knows what to believe involved in all of that too? I don't know. That might be bullshit. Let's face it. I think I'm at a healthy stage with the media at this point, and a healthy stage with journalists that there's only a sort of select few journalists that I genuinely really sort of, if they write it, I trust it, and I go, that's probably got some weight to it. You know, after what sort of happened today and after what's really happened this season, right? You know, there's been a lot of nonsense written about United. I mean, we joke about it facetiously, don't we? We joke about when it gets to an international break, we go, what's the story going to be? Because there's got to be one. And if there isn't one, a natural one will be fabricated. One will be found. Something will happen. Talent ID. And it's almost like that's where I think these buzzwords come from as well. Talent ID. Toxic positivity. Because there's got to be a story. There's got to be a story in something. Let's talk about Sancho for 2 weeks. Let's talk about, it used to be Pogba. Let's talk about Pogba for 2 weeks. Let's talk about Martial. Let's talk about him. Let's talk about how Bruno shouldn't be captain. There you go. There's one. That's 2 weeks. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Harry Maguire. Let's talk about Andre Onana for 2 weeks. There's always something. And Ten Hag kind of points at this, saying when you're the biggest club in the world, you're always going to get that scrutiny, and I get that. But I think truly the reason they pushed back today is because, we saw it in the interview that TNT did with Ten Hag last week. Another crisis, as we like to see. You go, okay. Well, you showed your hand there. Appreciate the honesty, but you showed what you really care about. And you just care about United losing and United failing and more statements and circus. That's what you really care about, isn't it? You know, and they've thrived off it in the last decade. Granted, it's not their fault. You know, it's been handed to them on a silver platter with the way that this club's run, certainly. But again, I look at it and the situation today and go, good, push back, draw a line in the sand. Don't let them get away with it. But at the same time, let's keep the energy that we keep towards the press, keep it towards the players as well. Don't let them get away from it as well. You know, when it comes to banning them, well, ban some of these players from being United players with some of the performances and some of the work rate they've been putting in. And then on top of that, then claim, the reason we're not running in the games is because we're running too much in training. What? What? It's wild. Next question was from Jamie Jackson to Eric Ten Hag. And it says, you've always been careful not to set high expectation and say it's a process and it takes time. You speak about your record, and your record is excellent. What is a realistic time frame to get where you want to go? Is it next season? In your head, is there a time frame for when it can be achieved? Fans might want to hear that. And Ten Hag said, quote, "In this club, the aim is, and the demand should be, that you win every game. Go into every game with that aim, that mentality. I don't want to change this because that will be a drop-off in culture. That means, yeah, there is a high standard expected of me and also of the team. There are also high standards on the players, and I don't want to make compromises in that." So wise not to maybe put time frame on it, because when you put time frames on things, you tend not to achieve them, right? He also spoke about this mentality when he says, I want to win every game. I want to beat every team. It doesn't matter who they are, away, at home. I want to win every game. He said last year, that brought us very far. Third in the league, FA Cup final, Carabao Cup final. That's the mentality, and I don't want to change that. And again, I go back to certainly him leaning on his record. And he was leaning very, very strongly on his record earlier on. My record speaks for itself kind of situation. Doing the same here. This mindset, this mentality that I have, got us third place, a trophy, and a cup final last year, and I don't want to change that either. But I would say one thing that maybe he might be learning at this point in time is that, you know, the sort of the credit that you can build for getting third, a trophy, the first trophy in 6 years, was it? And a cup final as well. Even I am quite surprised by how quickly that credit has run out for some people in their eyes. I think when you look at the context of what happened last season too, for where we finished in the league, given the circumstances as well, it was somewhat remarkable, really, wasn't it? It was somewhat remarkable in the sense that, you know, we essentially didn't win a game against a top 8 or 9 side all last season away from home. We won all of our games at home, bar one. We didn't have a striker as well throughout the season. We brought in Wout Weghorst, and somehow, some way, he managed to get third place finish, a trophy, and a cup final out of that. I don't even know how. Looking back on it, how did that even happen? So that should be credit in the bank, but at Manchester United, as he mentioned, the expectation is, and the want is, to win every single game. And if you're losing games, and if you're constantly, you know, not putting in performances as well, that credit runs out very fast. And for some people, it has. Some people had concerns last season. As I've said before, for me, it's still exactly the same. Back the manager, keep the manager. Minimum to the end of the season, but I think even further, I think the bigger focus should be on the players and rooting out the culture that will, if it chews up and spits out Erik ten Hag, it will chew up and spit out another manager. I really do think we have to break the cycle, and I think that if the roles were in reverse, if this season was Erik ten Hag's first season, then the pressure wouldn't be as much. It's almost like he had overinflated expectations with a group of players that maybe weren't as good as we thought they were, and also with some of the, I don't say resources, because obviously, look, we spent a lot of money, but I mean, in terms of again, with Wout Weghorst up front, you know, it kind of overinflated how good maybe we actually were, and what we achieved was way more than people thought. And because of us now actually crashing back down to reality and how good these players actually are, how good this team actually is, which is really 6th or 7th best team in the league, we're sort of startled by it. But maybe there's just how good they actually are. Maybe this is genuinely just back to base level. Last season was a big overachievement, back to base level, and it's kind of startled people perhaps. And maybe that's the problem too. Because if realistic, looking at this sort of group of players now, would we expect them to win, you know, a trophy, get to a final, finish third in the Premier League? You laughing. No chance. So I think that's part of a problem too, is maybe expectations got set almost too high, perhaps. And they never, and it's almost like if you look back to last season, you know, starting slow, gradually building up, kind of really peaking around sort of February time, peaking then, and never being the same since. It's almost like we've never just recovered from that. We've never found that form again. We've never got back into that stride. We've never had that resiliency. We've looked tired and fatigued for the best part of 9 months at this point, which it's kind of wild when you think about it too. So it's all just a very strange situation, certainly. We've got another gifted membership here from JP87TM again. That's two gifted memberships. Big up to you for gifting out 2 members. The UV Members Club growing rapidly one by one. Who is the person that it got gifted to? It got gifted to Steez94. So big up to you. Thank you very much, Jade. I always get the numbers right. JP87TM. Thank you very much for your gifted membership there as well. Jamie Jackson responded to that by also saying, but it's a fact that only one team can win the Premier League and the Champions League. So how long do you think it's going to take for United to get to the point where they're challenging? And Ten Hag said, that's true. I'm very realistic. Occasions we talk more about it. The competition in the Premier League is very tough. I told you a couple of months ago that the physical output had increased a lot in the last 3 or 4 months. As a club, as a team, you have to match the standard. If you do less, you never achieve what you want to achieve. And I thought that was really interesting, what he said there. When he said that, when he spoke about you have to, we're seeing the output in the Premier League increase physically and also just in terms of like goals. I mean, you look at Arsenal tonight, that's another 4-3. For all of the talk about United, shipping goals and, having basketball matches and matches that are 4-4, 4-3, 3-3, what have you. Is it me or is that kind of par for the course at the moment this season? We've seen that a lot. I was thinking that as well, whether it's Chelsea 4-4, whether it's Spurs, Chelsea City rather 4-4, or Spurs City, that was 3-3, whether it was, Chelsea versus Spurs, what was that, 4-1, whatever it was in the end. It feels like a lot of matches. A lot of matches you're seeing in the Premier League at the moment are these like high-scoring 3-3s, 4-3s, 4-4s, 3-2s. Maybe we're part of that as well. I mean, in the Premier League, we haven't been scoring a lot of goals, but certainly in the Champions League, we've had a ton of those games this season. And I don't know, football's just, and this is kind of a bit of a sidebar here, I suppose, but football's changing. Football's, it feels like less and less about defending, and it's more about a game that's just kind of judged and decided on by mistakes. Even if you look at the game earlier on between Arsenal and Luton, a couple of the goals in that game are just directly linked to errors. There's one goal that slips under David Raya in goal. I think Arsenal's first goal, keeper puts it out for a throw, and it's a quick throw, and they go and score as well. That's an individual mistake. Christian says Liverpool 4, Fulham 3. Maybe there's just, I don't know. Football is changing in that respect, And if you've also noticed, when there is a game that's sort of a grind it out 1-0, you get complaints about it. It's boring. No, it's a boring game. That's not football. And I hate that because it is football. Football isn't in one certain way. Football, there's so many different ways to play. There's so many different tactics. And I don't know, maybe it's just a bit of the old school, but I kind of miss the shithousery of it. I don't get me wrong. You watch games and 4-3s and what have you, and they're brilliant games to watch as a neutral. But there is, I don't know, does feel like there is sort of something to be said about that style of football, that kind of, defensive stability in grinding out football matches and going away from home and making sure that you not get everyone behind the ball, but you're effective. And just those sort of, again, this season you see it in the Premier League, there's a lot of games like that. And certainly a lot of games. What else are people saying in the chat at the moment here as well? Clovis says Liverpool 3-1 in a lot of games. Liverpool have been involved in a lot of high-scoring games this season. RC says, so when we overperform, he can take credit, but vice versa, it's solely. 1 minute it's the players, next it's him, lack of accountability, underlying stats don't lie, been piss poor, rely on moments. Maybe I've read that wrong, but it feels like there's a couple of words missing. The point being is that he lacks accountability, I think, and saying that the stats don't lie, they've been piss poor, we rely on moments, I think is what RC said. Basically saying that Ten Hag needs to take accountability, I guess, for negatives as well as positives, which I think is the manager's job. But, I appreciate the contribution. As I mentioned earlier on, I don't. When I say the manager should keep his job, I think people perceive that as like that's a blind blanket of he hasn't done anything wrong, which is which he has. There have been some very questionable decisions by Erik ten Hag this season. There have been some very questionable moments and questionable signings. Oh my goodness me, questionable signings. If you look at the team that played against Newcastle, I think, what did it have? 7 players from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer's era, 8 from Ralf Rangnick's. A lot of his signings were on the bench. A lot of them are out injured at the moment, certainly. And he has to take, and he has to be held accountable for that. And he has to take responsibility for that. No doubt about it. But at the same time, that also, in the same way that we're saying that it doesn't give a blanket, oh, it's just, Erik ten Hag can do no wrong, that also doesn't mean that these players get a bye. And ultimately, if the manager gets sacked, it's only the manager that's sort of burdening the responsibility of those negative results. And it does feel like, and as much as Erik ten Hag can say that, oh, the players are behind me and they all believe me and they all believe in it, tell that to some of your players, because they weren't showing that against Newcastle. They were walking. They were doing nothing. So, I don't know. Steph says, "Oh, and it's December. Shave your tash." I believe it's a full-fledged beard. Yeah, it's got about I think at this point about 4 months worth of growth, proper. So tash. This is just, was it 11 o'clock shade, 11 o'clock stubble. Yeah, we'll just wake up like this every day. I'm one of those people. Could you imagine? I really sympathise those people that can wake up in the morning, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, shave, and then by the end of the day, they basically have to shave again. God, that must be hell. That must be awful. It just must be the worst. Yeah. I feel like beards are one of those, or facial hair is one of those things that people that have it resent it. And then people that don't have it want it. You know what I mean? That's what it must be. Yeah. I mean, I can't, call me crazy. I don't think that, KG is going to be offering me any like beard surgeon stuff anytime soon. I don't think that he's going to.
Disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah, I know, Kenny. I know it is. I mean, I've asked. I've said, KG, beard surgeon, hit me up. And he's had to say, look, Owen, you've got to kind of like have a beard to have beard surgeon. And I go, oh.
Disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah. But then Chalaboy Comics says, and this isn't my words, Chalaboy's Comics says this, head hair over facial hair 100% of the time. So,
Oh, sorry.
Just my luscious locks, yeah. Where were we? Oh, yes. A press conference. Ten Hag was asked, you mentioned you listen to your players. Do they come to you or do you go to them? And Ten Hag said, it's a constant process. That we do it in team talks, in group, in individuals, in partnerships. There's a lot of interaction, saying that, no, we talk all the time. Going back to the game against Newcastle, one of the questions that Ten Hag was asked was about the midfield battle. And this was a really interesting response, actually, because there's been a lot of criticism, particularly of the midfield this season for United. And that our midfield just gets run through all the time. Now, I might be getting this phrase wrong, by the way. I've been trying to learn. I've been run through. I heard this phrase used before. I've heard this phrase used before by Hayley. She said run through.
Like a dirty gal.
Is that accurate? I mean, I've still been doing my research. I don't understand if that's correct. I don't understand if that's right. Every time I say it in a room full of people look at me and they go, I've been told not to say it in public settings as well, or not, not around company. But I don't know. I don't know if that's right. Someone's still yet to explain it to me. I can press it again.
Like a dirty gal.
It doesn't mean anything to me. Maybe I'll call up Hayley and I'll say, what did you mean by that? But then I feel like maybe they might hang up or something. Maybe. I'll ask Flex. Not this late. It'll probably give like bad impressions. Maybe. Perhaps. No. Dwayne says don't say it in public. Okay. Well, maybe. It's fine. We'll move on. The midfield, though, was getting run through, like one of those, and the question was put, do you think that you're going to have to adjust your man-marking system? Will you compromise? And Ten Hag, straight away, he said, no, I don't want to play man-marking. It is the wrong idea. In a certain point, we play man-marking when we are full in the press, but we play zonal. Only in this game, when we didn't cooperate, then it looks like it's man-marking. But I don't want to play it. It's a false idea. Which I thought was very interesting. Because I asked this question previously. I can't remember when. I do too many shows. It all bleeds into one. What day is it, even at this point? I'm pressing sound bites of things I have no idea what they are. And it's nearly midnight. That's life. But I wondered, when you watch the game against Newcastle and certain other games, and I had this sort of thought process under Ollie, under Ralph, even under Jose to an extent, of what you see out on the pitch on a Saturday or a Sunday or a midweek, is that really what they've been working on? Is that really what they've been working on throughout the week? Is that really the game plan? The game plan is to have tactical vomit out on the pitch and just go, yeah, that's our plan. We don't know what the plan is. Nobody can watch any football matches that Manchester United are playing at the moment and go, what's the idea? What's the style of play? What plan is in place at this point in time? And if what Ten Hag is saying, they're going, well, there is a plan, but they're not doing it properly. They're not cooperating. So it might actually appear to be something else. When it comes to midfield, it might appear to be it's a man-marking system, but it's not. We want to play zonal. We might go man-marking when we are full on in a press. But apart from that, we're playing zonal. And it's actually because of the lack of cooperation. It's because of the lack of them following the game plan and then following tactical instruction that actually appears to be something else. And I find that quite curious. Because I remember watching Man United play under Ralph Rangnick, and it was a dark time, realistically. But we thought we were going to get like this gegenpress. We thought we were going to be Liverpool, essentially. This guy taught Klopp everything he knows about his philosophy. We're getting the originator. Manchester United are going to be like Liverpool, but better. We're going to be pressing from the front and all this kind of stuff. And we saw it for 40 minutes and then it vanished. And then after that, you get into the territory of, did Ralph compromise? And I guess he kind of did. Because he started off with 4-2-2 and then it vanished very quickly. And it vanished because the players didn't want to do it and they couldn't follow it. And they couldn't, apply the tactics the way that he wanted the team to apply them. So I find it very interesting that what appears to be happening out on the pitch is not actually what the manager wants. It's not actually what the manager intends. And that must be so frustrating. That must be so annoying when you work all week. This is the tactical plan. This is what I want you to do. And then just poof, on a Saturday, a Sunday, or a Wednesday or a Tuesday, it just disappears. And it just turns into, once again, what is it? Freestyle football. Players, let's do what we want. Let's just do nothing. Let's just walk about. Let's just try and do hope football. Let's try and do balls over the top. Let's play out from the back. Let's not play out from the back. Let's do what we want to do. So I find it quite interesting that him saying, actually, when you see it like that, that's not actually our intention. And he was very firm about that in his answer, going, no, we don't play man marking. We play zonal. It just looks like it because it's that bad. I was like, oh my God. A couple of other super chats here. Let me get to them. JP87TM says, best community going. Big up to yourself. Member for 17 months. Look at that. A member for 17 months and gifted out 2 memberships this evening as well. Big performance. Strong performance from you this evening. So I appreciate all of the support. 17 months of it as well. Round of applause in the chat. Emojis in the chat as well. Red Baron with the super chat as well. Thank you for the contribution. Says, I don't think Erik ten Hag comes out of this. Our fans will click the articles that boost the media's agenda. Our owners do track this sort of analytics on social media. We will be here again with a new guy. Well, I agree with the sentiment that I think if we get rid of Ten Hag, I think it's a vicious cycle. And I think we just do the same thing over again. I mean, there's a reason this clip now exists in the soundboard.
Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again?
I put it in this morning when it came to the articles of Ten Hag losing the dressing room, because we've seen that same story, that same article, time and time again. Just remove one manager's name, put another one in. It's that easy. And then it's...
Well, it's Groundhog Day. Again?
And that's what it feels like with Manchester United when it comes to that as well. I think what Ten Hag does have on his side is, as we spoke about before, and as he kind of talked about in the press conference, we're still within touch and distance of those people in the race for the top 4. So he has that going in his favour. I think another thing he has going in his favour as well is that the people that would sack him at the moment aren't actually in the club at the moment. And because there's so much chaos going on above him, whether or not we get an announcement of INEOS and Sir Jim Ratcliffe next week, time will tell. But... Richard Arnold ain't going to sack Erik ten Hag. He's leaving at the end of this month. John Murtough's not going to do it. He's probably going to be out of a job fairly quickly. So the people that would pull the trigger, they're not even in possession of the firearm right now. So I think he's got that going on for him at the moment. And it's just a case of, I suppose, when INEOS do come in, and if they do get football in control, how it's been written and all that kind of stuff, will the situation be so bad and so toxic that they feel it's the best thing to do a completely fresh start, and that includes removing the players but also removing the manager and executives? Or do they see promise in Ten Hag, and do they think that actually though we just need to ease the burden on him, we just need to take recruitment away from him, and we need to put better executives around him, we need to give him better sporting directors, we need to assist him, we need to help facilitate him. He can't do it all by himself, but we believe in him. And that's going to be the interesting thing, because all of the noises do suggest that they like Erik ten Hag, but proof will be firmly in the pudding when it comes to all that. In the Christmas pudding, I suppose, as well. Festive. And David says, hi, Owen. Hi. Thank you for the super chat. Hello to everyone that is watching late on, or guess early, or I guess midway through the day, depending on where you are as well. How many likes are we currently at the moment as well? We are currently at 132 likes. We've got nearly 500 people watching, which is great for this late. We're sort of expanding. We're expanding these shows. This has been a bit of a newer thing, the late night news. And I was actually talking to Just Josh Media, graphics guru, visual ninja, earlier today, and we were talking about this show and where we're thinking of taking it in the future. And when it's late, you can kind of do whatever you want, basically, as we were sort of saying. So, yeah, there's lots of exciting stuff planned. So I appreciate everyone that's tuned in thus far. So if you haven't already, click that like button as well. Another super chat from Red Baron as well says, this INEOS Hail Mary is going to be a decoy to protect the Glazers. Slight changes will happen, not what we need though. Well, still the key thing, isn't it, with INEOS and all that kind of stuff. And this is why I suppose we shouldn't get bogged down in the details and should be more focused still on the bigger picture, the wider plan and the future as well. We should be focused on INEOS coming in. The first sort of thing shouldn't be, oh, what's happening with Ten Hag, or what's happening with sporting directors, or even CEO, what's happening with them. The biggest and most pressing and important thing should be, what's the roadmap looking like? Are you going to buy out the Glazers? Are you going to eventually own the majority of this football club? Are you going to actually have a plan that is going to rid the Glazers, get rid of the Glazers out of the football club? What's that going to look like? That's the key thing. And I suppose with all of this noise that's going on today with fans and journalists and players and jogging and contracts and all that kind of stuff, it really pales in significance and pales in importance to the biggest problem, which are the owners. And it doesn't look like they're going to be immediately going anytime soon. But as long as there is light at the end of the tunnel, that's something to aim towards. And Manchester United certainly, whilst this whole strategic review's been going on, has been entirely rudderless. We've been on a canoe in a lake with no current. We're just flat. We're not going anywhere. It feels like we are. We might put our hands into the water and try and move forward like that. And the next thing you know, we're just turning around in circles and we're going backwards. And we go, hey, a minute, we haven't moved. That's what it feels like at the moment. Manchester United is just a club without direction, certainly. I asked Kenny for a comment. He said it was...
Disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful.
I tend to agree, Kenny. I do. Next question was, you mentioned some of the performances and comebacks are proof that the players are together. Do you think the players are backing you? And Ten Hag said, I don't have the idea that they are not, because I know they would have let me down against Fulham or Burnley if it was the other situation, if the situation or environment was not right. But that is not the case. So Ten Hag is saying, I know the players are backing me. I know the players are with me. And the reason I know the players are with me and the players are backing me is because we beat Fulham and Burnley. And that's when you go, and it was like the press conference earlier today, wasn't it? That's when you go, Eric. Like, it's not the flex that you think it is. Like the Fulham away result, which was it was not a great performance. If that game ended up being 0-0, it'd have been fair. Like, it was a kind of jammy goal at the end. I love it, like, because I love a shithouse win, but it was not the, it was not the victory that was not evidence to me of going, players are playing for the manager. They're big time. The Burnley game, Eric loves the Burnley game. He always points to that game. It was coming out of the Bayern Munich defeat at the Allianz, away at Burnley. I mean, what? The worst team in the league? Beat them away from home. And going away to Burnley ain't the sort of win that it used to be in the Premier League as well. So I don't know about those two results. I don't think, this is why the report from Carve, I think, has got a lot of attention, because of, obviously, it's Carve, it's Sky, and all that kind of stuff. But I don't think it's fair to say that Erik ten Hag has lost the dressing room, because I don't think he has. I do think there are players that are still fighting for him. Players that he signed, also people like Harry Maguire, they're fighting for him because he's playing them at the moment, and others. I think that there are senior players, clearly, that maybe aren't playing for him, or certainly very much on the fence, or kind of over him. There's no doubt about that. We know he's falling out with Sancho. The situation with Rafael Varane is tense. I still don't think it's as bad as maybe people are pointing out with that. I genuinely do believe that. I think Erik ten Hag just feels like Maguire's just playing well at the moment, and he doesn't like to change that much. For me, I mean, tomorrow's going to be fascinating. This time tomorrow, not only will we know the result, but also we'll know if he started Marcus Rashford. So I think if he does start Rashford tomorrow, I think I've said it a few times, I think genuinely he'd be very close to signing his own P45, because there's no redeemable way he can start tomorrow. But I do think there are players fighting for him. I do believe that. A couple more super chats as well. Zayn Miasi's in the chat, says rice baby, and also mum's credit cards firmly. Did you hear that? There was the mum's credit card out on the table, gold card it was, as gifted a UV membership. So I mean, it kind of, do I have to say thank you to Zayn Miasi for gifting out a UV membership? Right. I'll do it. I'll do it, because it's the right thing to do. It's got. No, I can say it. I can do it. I can do this. It's just.
Honestly, I feel sick. That's how I feel. I feel sick.
I just don't know if I could do this. Zayn Miasi.
Go fuck yourself.
It just slipped out. It just slipped out. I don't know how it happened. I said it. You might have heard me say something else, but I said it. I definitely did. I don't know. It wasn't me, so I didn't see it. It wasn't me. Mr. Leo G has been given the membership by Zayn Miasi. I said thank you, so you heard it. I said it. So Zayn Miasi. Amanor, moving on, says, Owen, how do you deal with UV fans, e.g. Troy Superstar? Well, look, when it comes to Troy Superstar, he's put in super chats. When you put in super chats, hey, we'll read them out. I have to say, his opinion. I don't share his opinion. But at the same time, I do think it's important that if people have differing opinions, doesn't make them any less right or wrong. I think that they should be based in reality. And Troy's on the territory of super crack instead of super chat. But that's his prerogative, you know. I do think that we do live in this day and age, don't we, where if someone has a differing opinion to you, apparently that requires people just to be attacked. You know what I mean? Should the manager stay or get sacked? You go, I think the manager should say, "You idiot! What are you talking about? Are you a real fan? You're not even a real fan. Look at you. YouTubers. You know, YouTubers." And then you get other people going, no, I think the manager gets sacked. You fool! Instant gratification, rah, rah, rah. What happened to civilized dialogue? What happened to back and forth? Okay, I don't agree with your opinion. These are the reasons I don't agree with it. Let's shake hands, let's move on. We're always at each other's throats all the time. We're Manchester United. The last bit's in there, United. Josie with a super chat as well says, it's past time we start realising these players are uncoachable. How do proven managers fail with the same players? They can't/won't be coached. Well, I think that certainly for a lot of the players at the club, even people that have, because lots of people point out, they go, well, if it's a cultural problem at Manchester United, how come when a lot of people leave the club, the culture still remains? Doesn't that imply that it's not just the players? And the players are part of the problem, but they're not the entire problem. And also, it's a systemic cultural issue. You might have people that sort of add to the bad culture at United, but just because they leave doesn't mean it's over. You know, people pick up bad behaviours or bad personality traits from a lot of people, don't they? So, because that's one of the things people pointed out. Oh, there's only like 6 players left from Jose Mourinho's time. So how can you say, oh, it's the same players turning on them? But it's the same pattern of behaviour. And it's allowed. You know, people, it's like a school, isn't it? That school is one of the worst behaved schools in the city or in the town. And you go, yeah, but eventually they all leave. So how come it's the worst behaved school? Because they're allowed to behave badly. And because, guess what? That kind of behaviour is tolerated and not even frowned upon. It's, what they like. That's what it is. What's it like? And that's what it's got to be with United. The point needs to be proven to these players. You're not going to be allowed to get away with it. When you're not going to force, the board or force the owners into a situation where it's choose us or the manager. Otherwise, you'll lose, you'll lose commercial revenue and all this kind of stuff. Or leave, then go. We're sticking with the manager. Again, that's my feeling on it, certainly. How many questions we got left with this? Because I feel like I've deviated massively. He was talking about the important game. Well, important wins against Fulham or Burnley. I will go back to the culture. It's almost like a segue. It says, you talk about no good culture you inherited. Are the performances proof, evidence of this no good culture that still needs to be worked on and sorted out at Manchester United? And this is quite interesting. This is when he criticised the articles. This is why he criticised the things that have been written, particularly these articles that have come out. Maybe a bit more of an indication why these people were banned as well from the press conference. He said, quote, "I don't know what has come out because you speak in your article about one source. That's a joke. So I won't reflect on that. And when you play one bad performance, you can't say that the culture is not good. Last week, once again, I will say we played well. We played 3 games and had 2 very good performances where the team was playing very good in all perspectives of football. In almost all perspectives of football." So he repeated himself there. But so he said that some of these articles are a joke, which is true, by the way. Some of these articles absolutely are a joke. And they're predictable in terms of the timing. Don't get me wrong, what's tomorrow? Match day? Get ready, tomorrow morning, sort of 9 a.m, 10 a.m, 10:30 p.m, or a.m. rather. They'll be out. There'll be new ones that come out as well. I saw that, in the article that Samuel Luckhurst wrote about the Manchester Evening News being banned, they went kind of scorched earth on Manchester United and the communications department and talking about the worst start to the season in 60 years and this, that, and the other, blah, blah, blah. And I just thought, the nerve. You've been told you're not coming into this press conference for a specific reason. You wrote these articles and you didn't offer us the professional courtesy of coming to us with what you'd written for a comment, which is kind of par for the course. You didn't do that. And we believe what you've written is bullshit. And you've got one source in your article. So we're banning you. And then they start chiming in on the communications department, which they're constantly in communication with anyway, about stories in the first place. And about, stories throughout, because it's getting towards January. You don't think in January or throughout late December, they're going to be constantly in back and forth. Hey, what's going on with this transfer? Hey, is there anything in this story? Hey, we've heard about you being linked with this guy. Is that true? Is that true? Is that true? So you just go take it, learn from it, move on. And when it comes back to Ten Hag talking about, the culture can't be bad because it's only one bad performance. Once again, that's when we get into the territory of Eric. It's not the best answer. It's not the best answer because I don't think, even when you look at the victories against Everton and even the game against Galatasaray, which wasn't a win as well, I don't know if that's strong enough evidence of a strong culture at Manchester United or strong togetherness. There are elements of it that are positive, certainly. There are individual performances involved in it that are positive, absolutely. But if that's kind of what you're sort of clutching onto as we've got really good togetherness. I mean, I mentioned it a few weeks ago talking about it's something to build upon, but I don't know if it's complete evidence that culturally Manchester United's in a good place, because we're not. And I don't think we'll ever be until the structure above the manager and the players is fixed. And that's going to take a lot of time. And it's not even really started yet until INEOS come in. And how much are they going to actually be able to change as well, realistically too? And it's very interesting, isn't it? He's a lot of backing for players that you wonder, are they really backing him at this point of time as well? Now, the next question was saying about all of this negativity outside of United. What impact does that have on you personally? And Ten Hag said, of course, negativity is never good. You have to take care. It never kills the energy. But I don't care. I know the players know that in this club, we are one of the biggest clubs in the world. And you will get a lot of attention. In the moments that if you are not getting the results you want or playing the way you should be, there is criticism coming. And you have to deal with that. We are together in that. And there is no way you are alone there. And that's probably one of the biggest learning curves for Erik ten Hag in this job, right? Is that you always are realistically one loss away from a crisis, aren't you? Regardless of who it's against, regardless of your position, whether you're in the top four, whether you're top of the league, whether it's in a cup competition or whatever, if you lose, your head's on a spike, essentially. And even when you're winning and you're going through games and you're on a run of winning games as well, essentially the media's waiting for you to lose. They're not waiting for you to win. They're not waiting for you to be successful. They're not even really waiting to praise you that much, particularly that gaggle of vultures as well. They're not waiting for that. They're waiting for you to fail. They're waiting for you to slip up. They want you to. Again, that's what they're looking for. That's what they thrive on. And they want to literally pick the carcass that is your Manchester United career. So even if when we play Chelsea tomorrow, and if we win, even if we win, whether it's 2-1 or it's convincingly or whatever it is, it won't be enough. If we beat Chelsea, they'll have an asterisk over the top of it. Well, I'm not sure it was this, not sure it was that, all that kind of stuff. If we win against Bournemouth at the weekend and it's back-to-back wins, well, I don't really know, blah, blah, blah. It will never, ever, ever, ever be enough. And all you can do at United, and that's why he keeps saying you just have to win every game, because that's literally what keeps them at bay, is winning those games. Now, Seven says here, how is that a learning curve? Are people thinking Erik ten Hag is a novice? LOL. I think you'd be surprised, where people don't get the media scrutiny that is being the Manchester United manager. For instance, you look at Pep Guardiola, right? He's dominating the Premier League and has dominated the Premier League for the last, how long has he been in the job? Nearly a decade. Came in 2016. And he gets a fraction of the media intensity that Erik ten Hag does and other managers do, because, to be honest, people don't care. They don't. You put Manchester City in a headline, the only time people care about it is when you find out how much they're cheating or 115 charges. Apart from that, people could give a shit. We sign a player, it gets more traction on social media than City winning the treble. Again, that's the kind of intensity that we're talking about. And again, I don't think people realise that. Pep Guardiola, when he was the Barcelona manager, had to step away realistically because he was like, the scrutiny, the intensity, the media, everything you think you do or say is criticised, scrutinised to the nth degree. It's too much. And Manchester United's in the similar bracket with that as well. And it's a quick learning curve for a lot of people because we've seen it in press conferences like this. You say one word that can be interpreted another way, they're on you. At another club, they don't care. They just don't as much. It certainly won't be criticised, scrutinised, forensically analysed in the press like it is for United for weeks. I mean, they're still talking about what Erik ten Hag said about Jadon Sancho. When was that? End of August, beginning of September? And when you look back on it, it wasn't that bad. Other managers have said something similar about their players this season. Nobody cares. But that's the difference between Manchester United manager and being another manager. It's just, again, it's the intensity. It's the intensity and it's the scrutiny. It's on just another level. And like I said, it's the only thing that can keep the journalists at bay is winning football matches. And it doesn't really earn you much praise. I mean, he won a trophy last season, got to a final, finished third. Did it get him a lot of praise? No. It just means that they didn't hate him for a period of time. That's like the levels that we're talking about. The next final two questions were about the you have an excellent record against teams in the bottom half of the league, but not in the top half. What do you put that down to? And Ten Hag said, I've said many times, we are developing, we are progressing, we have a long way to go and a lot to build on. We're not where we want to be. We have to stick to the plan. We have to raise our levels. And then the final question was, you won a lot of the games though at home last year, and Ten Hag said, same answer, we have to build on the foundations we have to raise the levels. And this was always the worry, wasn't it, about last year? Our away form last year in the Premier League was rubbish when it came to, particularly against teams in the top half of the table. But our form at home was so good, it was one of the, I think it was like, wasn't it the best in the league, or the second best in the league, because we beat everyone, or didn't lose to everyone apart from Brighton at home. But people did point out at the time, and they're right, well, if your away form stays as it is, and you start losing games at home, you'll be in trouble, because having that level of performance away from home in the Premier League, that's just not good enough. You can't get away with it. Last season we did. And what's happened this season? We started losing games at home. We start losing games at home, whether it's against, Palace, or whether it's against Brighton, City, whoever. Those games that we were winning last season, or not losing, we started losing. And we've continued to lose those games away. Thankfully, next two games are at home. So we've got a chance. We've got a chance next two games. So there you go. As far as the game against Chelsea, I don't know what to expect, honestly. It's at home, so we might see a reaction. Crowd will certainly be up for it, I think. I think it'll be a good atmosphere at Old Trafford. Chelsea are a weird one. I still say we shouldn't be afraid of Chelsea. I see a lot of people, Chelsea were definitely going to lose against Chelsea. They had a good performance, a good result against Brighton at the weekend, but they're nowhere near the complete article. There's a reason that they're below us. I mean, we're talking about how bad we've been this season. They're below us in the Premier League. And people like to talk about how great the project is there. Is it? Realistically. So I don't think there's any reason that we should be like, we're absolutely, terrified and afraid and scared of them or anything like that. But team selection is going to be key and critical tomorrow. And if he picks Rashford, or he picks some of those players, Martial's another one that aren't performing to level, McTominay, then you would say, Eric, you're not helping yourself, and you're really putting yourself in trouble. Ultimately, though, what matters? Points, performances, victories. That's what matters, certainly. So we're going to have that all covered tomorrow. We're going to have, obviously, the match view, then fan views, player ratings, full-time view, all that kind of stuff. In addition to that, of course, Morning View will be live 9 a.m. Flex, myself, and one Mr. KG the Comedian. I've heard a rumour that he might be up at 9 o'clock. We'll see. You never know with him. You never know. I don't know if I've got proper confirmation on that. He sent me a message that he was going to be up in the morning, but it's KG the Comedian, and he's been known to be
disgraceful. Absolutely disgraceful.
So we'll have to see, certainly. A couple more super chats before I wrap things up. Red Baron with a super chat, excuse me, says, take what Erik ten Hag says in public with a pinch of salt. Well, certainly. Everything you say in these press conferences, right? You know, they're not going to say the whole truth and nothing but the truth or anything like that. He's not doing his press conferences with his hand on a stack of Bibles or anything like that, is he? You have to play the game a little bit with the media as well, don't you? So there you go, guys. Appreciate you all tuning in for late night news. Really enjoyed doing these streams. I'm very much a night owl. I'm at my best. You can probably see me in the morning on the morning views, and I'm like proper at the screen looking tired. I'm just not an early riser. That's just not my thing. But so I appreciate everyone tuning in and up this late. Like I said, we're going to build these out, and they're a lot of fun to do the day before a match because you get a lot of these stories and informations and all that kind of stuff. So I appreciate everyone tuning in, and we'll be back live tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. Don't miss it. I'm out of here. Peace.